some feedback, but I see that we have Devorah, Heidi, Lori, Marianne, Miss Sandy, Shulamit Michal, Simcha Yael, and Vivian, and some people on the phone. Okay, Lori. Oh, Lori. Hi, Lori from California. Welcome. I'm going to switch over to our other settings, and we'll begin. Okay, so I hope everybody had a wonderful Tishrei. It feels like ages ago. It was only a few short weeks. And how's everybody doing? Okay. Okay, I see some people are typing. Good. Okay. Baruch Hashem. Baruch Hashem. Okay. So I do want to tell you that the classes at Breslov campus are sponsored, and tonight's class was not sponsored, so I decided to sponsor it. And I'm dedicating this class to our stalwart and constant student, Simcha Yael, who is here. Hi, Simcha Yael. I'm dedicating it to Simcha Yael, tonight's class, because Simcha Yael is someone who spends a lot of time thinking about and learning and working on emunah, and therefore this class is dedicated to her. Okay, so you're welcome. Okay. If anybody would like to sponsor a dedicated class, we definitely need sponsors for all the classes, not just mine this semester. So feel free to go to Breslov campus and click on sponsor. Okay, so the subject tonight is emunah. And what happens with emunah is because it's such a buzzword and because it's something that everybody has talked about and written more than a couple of books about, which are all very good books, by the way. The ones with the moon and the title are great. What happens is that we kind of peak at our level of emunah, and then we kind of hold there. Okay, not everybody, but it's very common. And Rabbi Nachman says very specifically that what we need to do is to begin with emunah, to begin with faith. Everything begins with faith. Faith is the foundation of everything, he says. Okay? So we begin with faith, and then in order to go deeper, we must learn. And then our faith goes to the next level. And then when our faith is at that level, and the Rebbe describes this process, then we have to learn more, and our faith goes up again and again and again. It's not something that plateaus, or it shouldn't plateau. It's something that we are responsible for reinvigorating, okay? What happens is we get to a certain point, we have what we believe is good, strong faith, which we should have, and we should believe that we have good, strong faith. And then a test comes along out of left field, and suddenly emunah doesn't seem to apply to the particular thing that we're going through. Has anybody here ever experienced this phenomenon? I know I have. Okay? Yes, right. We think we have all eventualities covered. We understand where we're headed. We've got the hang of this emunah thing, and then wham, something comes along, and we don't even think to apply emunah to it. Okay? We forget about emunah. Don't beat yourself up for this. It's normal, 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 which is why we have to always keep learning emunah, always keep grabbing on and listening to and reading and thinking about and discussing it. Okay? So I would like to just give you a brief overview of this class. I decided on this class. I was inspired by Simcha Yael and my own stuff. I wanted to work on it. And I thought I knew what I was going to teach. And then as I began to research the class, I discovered there were at least 3,000 things about emunah that I didn't know from the 200 that I was going to teach. So there's a lot of information in the class. I'm not going to get through all of it through the semester, but I want to describe to you the sources and why they're not listed in the class. Normally I give you a list of texts. I may even give you the text or a translation of the text. That is because literally I have stacks of Sfarim and other things. Literally it comes from across the depth, the breadth of Breslov. So if I ever forget to mention a source while I'm sharing something with you and you want to know it, ask me. And if I have it written down, I'll tell it to you, okay? All right, so we're going to begin with a story. And we are going to do at least 2 stories over the course of the semester, because the stories of Rebbe Nachman are always about emunah. Emunah is embedded in almost all his stories, but we're going to begin with a parable, one of the short stories. It's very short, and maybe some of you have heard it before. It's called The Bitter Herb. Once a Jew and a German were traveling as hobos together. Okay, they were down on their luck, so they were a little bit hobo-ish, and they were working together. The Jew told the German to make believe that he was a Jew, since the language of Yiddish and German are very similar, and that the Jews would have pity on him and invite him to a Pesach Seder, to Passover. And he said, you're going to come to the Seder, and I'm going to tell you what you have to do, okay? Go to the Seder, you make, first there's Kiddush, and then you wash your hands, and so on and so forth. Okay, he said it's a long thing, and then you get some food. He forgot to tell the German man about the bitter herb. Just forgot. So they were both invited to a house, and they were very hungry. They were both very down on their mazel, and they had no money, and they were really looking forward to the good food of the Seder. And the Jew went to one house, and the German went to another. So first, they gave the German a piece of celery dipped in salt water and whatever the various things were. And then they began, and then they, that was the bitter herb in this translation here. And then they began to recite the Haggadah, which we all know that takes quite a while. And the German was just weak for the meal. Then they gave him matzah, and at this point they gave him the chrein, the horseradish, okay? And that was the bitter herb, and it was bitter, and he thought that the matzah and horseradish were the whole meal. And he was so upset, he ran from the house, cursing the Jews, because after all this ceremony, they gave him a dry piece of cracker and a piece of something inedible. And he went to behind the back of the shul and fell asleep, waited for his friend, the Jew. The Jew arrived several hours later, okay, his belly full, glowing from all the wine. And he said to the German, "How was your Seder?" And the other told him what happened. And the Jew said, "You dummy, if you had waited a little bit longer, you would have had a fine meal like I did." Okay. Now, the postscript to this story from Rebbe Nachman is, the same is true when a person wants to come close to God. You put in a lot of effort, and you think, I feel the spiritual high, and this is great. And instead, what happens? You're given some bitterness. Okay? Why do we get this bitterness? Rebbe Nachman says, he spells it out. He says this bitterness is necessary. It purifies you. Okay? But when we experience this bitterness, if we don't know what it is, if somebody hasn't taught us and we haven't accepted it, we think that the bitterness is all there is to serving God. And we run away, or we feel like this big burden's on us. But if we had waited a short while and we allowed ourselves to be purified, we would feel, says Rabbeinu, every simcha, every delight and joy in this world, and we would be close to Hashem. Okay? This parable describes what every single person goes through, not only just once in one grand gesture of coming close to Hashem, but many, many times throughout our lives. And we have the option of hanging in there through the bitterness, knowing that something sweet is to follow, or caving in or running. What is this short time? The Rebbe says a short while later, everything's good. So there are many short times, or many times that the Rebbe is speaking about. He's not only speaking about the short time in this one instance where something good comes along, like the Seder. It's an hour later you get to eat. No. Also the short time is our lives. The Rebbe says that our lives are like the blink of an eye, and that without the faith that we need to believe that truly Hashem loves us and truly something sweet is coming around the pike, okay, we grow bitter ourselves. We grow overwhelmed ourselves, sad, and we feel we can't continue. Okay. Or we just reach this sort of middle ground where we're just going through the motions. In order to get to that next point, like in the story, we have to truly have emunah. We have to have faith that the Suda is coming, okay? The Shulchan Aruch, right? The meal is coming. It's coming. Okay. All right. So throughout Rebbe Nachman's teachings, he directly and indirectly, not just like in the stories, he directly and indirectly speaks about emunah. And when asked why, he says very specifically, the whole world thinks faith, it's not a big deal. You have faith, you don't have faith, whatever your faith. He says, but by me, emunah is a very big deal. It's a really big deal, which is why you find these threads throughout almost every single lesson that the Rebbe teaches. Okay, not only does he tell us what emunah is, which is important because emunah is a multifaceted definition, but he also teaches us how to apply it and live it, because it's no good having emunah in your head and not living as if you have emunah. So when we want to live as if we have emunah, we say we have something called bitachon or bitachon. Okay, what is that? It gets translated as trust. It can be translated also as confidence. But what it really is emunah applied. How many people feel, I have wonderful emunah, look, I had faith that, I'm giving you a silly example, Hashem was going to get me a parking spot, and I had faith, and look, there I have my parking spot, or whatever it is, okay, my shidduch, my raise, whatever, okay? But what if that didn't happen? What if it didn't happen? What if you didn't get that parking spot? What if you got a ticket? Your car was towed. Okay. What if shidduch fell through? And what if, God forbid, and by the way, God forbid, none of this should come true for anyone. Well, not only didn't you get a raise, but you lost your job. God forbid. Okay. So then what? So then do we throw emunah out the window? Okay. No. If we are applying emunah and have trust, we have that bitachon in Hashem, we are still going to pull through. because we know that Hashem is there and that there's a greater purpose. And it's very easy for me to sit here now. Nothing particularly is going on, thank God. That's my major challenge at this moment in time. If I think about it, believe me, I could come up with something. I could say it, okay? But what happens when something does go on, okay? Then it becomes hard to apply, which is why we have to train ourselves, hopefully, when times are good. It's the best time. Sometimes we find ourselves in the crunch situation and we have to grow a lot under pressure. But if possible, we should take the opportunity while times are good to work on it. So, for example, somebody recently moved to Eretz Yisrael, somebody I know. She waited 12 years, okay? She waited 12 years to get married and have children and move to Israel. That was her dream. And her dreams all came through in the past year, beautifully enough. They all came through. Now, the shidduch was a little bit 2 years ago, but the baby and moving and so on and so forth. And she's now expecting her second child. And a younger woman in her 30s. And she had a lot of difficulties adjusting to where they chose to live in Israel. And her husband, who had this great job set up there, lost his job. And she called me just the other day and said, I thought I had emunah, and here I am in Eretz Yisrael. I waited all those years, 12 years, to find my besheret. I davened and I struggled and so on and so forth. And now I find myself at a loss. I don't even feel like praying. I feel so shut down. I feel like my dream was handed to me happily ever after. Now there's a new problem and it's a biggie. And we're struggling with the bills. Okay. So what was interesting, what I took from that is she's struggling with davening. She's struggling with praying. She's struggling with her connection to Hashem. So Reb Nosson says that if we really have emunah, if emunah is in our blood, like meaning it's part of us, then we're talking to Hashem all the time. And we believe, we have the faith that our tefillahs are being heard, our prayers are being heard, and that Hashem will answer them. And what happens very often, he says, is that first you pray and you find your prayers answered. Why? Because Hashem wants to give you the faith that you're being listened to, that you're heard, that he hears you. And then you may pray for many more things that don't necessarily come so easily. Okay? But if you have emunah, then you must have the emunah that Hashem is truly hearing your prayers. There is a qualitative, not only a quantitative difference for sure, a qualitative difference to your tefillahs, to your prayers, when you really, really believe that Hashem is listening, you have faith that he loves you, and that he wants you to call out to him, and this becomes a part of your life. Okay. And by the way, just as we said at the beginning, the ups and downs, where we go in and out of this, same thing applies here. Ups and downs are part of life. Okay. Our emunah goes up and down. The quality of our prayers goes up and down. The whole idea isn't to beat yourself up if it goes down or to give up. The whole idea is to reinvigorate yourself through learning emunah. Learning emunah, that's the thing that's going to invigorate you. Okay. All right. Questions so far? Okay. No. Okay. So I'm going to tell you some descriptions of emunah and give you some of the attributes. Okay. So Rebbe Nachman teaches us and you can find this in Tzaddik. Emunah is like a beautiful palace with many beautiful rooms. One enters and wanders about from room to room to room, and from hallway to hallway to hallway. And from there, one walks in bitachon. One walks in bitachon, and then further and further. How fortunate is he who walks in emunah. There's a lot in that, okay? So it just begins to show you the multitude of levels of emunah. We're going from room to room and from hallway to hallway and from floor to floor, presumably. But also that when you get to a certain point in emunah, you walk in bitachon. You're walking in bitachon. You're walking in trust. And then you're able to go further and further. Okay. So for every one of us who is working on our emunah, we have to remember that it's endless. It's not, we can't just read the book and say, that was great, it changed my life, and then go back and really feel changed and feel our heads are changed, and then go back to living our lives pretty much the same way with some tweaks. Got to grab a hold of it, okay? Now, all right, so I'm going to continue on with some of the things that Rabbeinu says. Okay, so what is emunah? Another thing that we learn is that emunah, that faith, isn't something based on something we know. Okay, a pilot doesn't fly an airplane because he has emunah in the plane. Okay. A pilot flies an airplane because he studied engineering and he studied flying and he knows how to work with the computers on the plane and he knows how to steer or whatever they do. I don't know what they do. Okay. He knows how to operate the plane. Okay. So we, all right, know how to drive a car. You know how to cook dinner. You don't need faith for these things. You don't need faith, you don't need emunah to know that you're sitting in a chair right now, or that you're sitting in front of a phone or a laptop. You don't need emunah for that. You know that. Okay? You don't even need emunah to believe that the internet is making a connection and that you and I are communicating over the internet. You don't need faith for that. Why? Because even if you don't know how it operates, there still is a knowable knowledge behind the functions that you're experiencing. Emunah begins where knowable knowledge, where something we can know, ends. Okay? That's where it begins. So in the course of your life, you may say, I followed a recipe and I have faith that it will turn out well. That's not exactly, okay, it's not exactly emunah. Okay, you followed instructions, something knowable, something doable. There are many variables that could have occurred. Okay. However, faith begins where knowledge becomes unknowable. This is the mistake made by who? By scientists, by journalists, by politicians, by doctors, okay? They feel that if it can't be known, then it's not real, then it's superstition, okay? Then it's fake. If I can't see it, if I can't know it, that means it doesn't exist. Rabbi Nachman teaches us over and over again throughout his lessons that no, okay, where knowledge ends, Maybe superstition beyond that, depending on what you're believing. But that's where emunah has to kick in. Believing is the key to the next level of knowledge. Okay, not the other way around. Now, for scientists and doctors who are very grounded in observing, okay, politicians too, but journalists also, very grounded in observing things and making inferences based on what they observe, okay, it can be very difficult for them to believe that there's a reality outside of what they're immersed in their professional lives. Even if you're in those fields, if you are a believing Jew, you already have that belief, hopefully, and you understand that things exist outside of what's observable and knowable for you. However, we run into this in our own everyday lives, where we become mini scientists and many doctors and many journalists, and we say to ourselves, we talk us out of faith at many intervals throughout our life. I know I learned in Torah that this and this is true, and I know I learned in Breslov that this and this is true, but I've never experienced it, so therefore it doesn't fall in my referent belief system. Okay, how many people have ever been there? Okay, do you understand what I'm saying? Does everybody understand? Yep. Okay. So we're going to go throughout this course, sort of knocking down like we did in the beginning. We want to know that everything that we're experiencing, I want you to know it's all normal. One of the beauties of Breslov, Chassidut, is that the Rebbe Nachman tells us stuff. He gets inside our heads, and he says, this is what you're thinking, this is how you're living, and it's normal, but you can do better. But it's normal. Don't beat yourself up. We all do this. And the great thing is the Rebbe says, he goes, it's okay. I know you're doing it. That's the way you're built. Now let's go beyond. Okay? Now let's believe we can get beyond that. And when we get beyond that, our lives open up for us to something amazing. Okay? Now, okay. I want to add to this point because it's very important that we understand that I'm going to actually quote something from Likutei Moharan 62, okay? Regarding those things which Hashem has given the human mind the ability to understand, okay? So the things that we can understand, it's a mitzvah to sharpen your intellect and your comprehension so that you understand them clearly. The things that you need to understand and that you can't understand, pay attention, learn them, understand them, okay? However, for those things which the human mind can't comprehend, a person must rely 100% on emunah. So we have to find this balancing act in our lives, okay? And as we go through this course and we understand the various components of emunah, you yourself are going to be able to develop for yourself a personal approach to where you need to go in your learning, in your davening, in your expressions of emunah, in your bitachon, in your bitachon, and so on and so forth. You're going to be able to figure out for yourself, because each of us is different. Now, it doesn't mean, what the Rebbe's not saying is, oh, I can't understand chemistry, okay, which I can. I never understood chemistry. Just what was over my head, okay? I sat in the class and it didn't make any sense to me, okay? That doesn't mean that I have to have faith, per se. What it means is that chemistry exists. I understand this exists, and even if I work on it, I'm probably not going to understand. I also have no interest in it. Okay, so I'm not going to understand it, and I'm not going to get there, but I don't need emunah for it. I don't need emunah to know that there's this body of science called chemistry, and that there's certain interactions and this is what happens. No, I can rely on other people who came before me, who did the science, and I can basically assume that it's pretty much true, that I shouldn't add, that if I add, okay, what can I think of, vinegar to baking soda, it's going to form a volcano. I can't remember behind third grade chemistry, sorry. Okay, right? But I can understand that I shouldn't mix, hydrochloric acid with whatever, something else. Okay, I'm going to rely on them. I don't need to experience this for myself. Okay, that's not emunah. That's something different. Okay, when it comes to learning for ourselves, what the Rebbe is saying is that within Torah, there are things that we should be learning for ourselves. So, for example, we can all understand how to check fruits and vegetables for insects. There's not a single person here who's not capable of it. Whether you want to study it or not, or whether you want to at least give yourself rudimentary knowledge of it, that's up to you. But you don't need emunah to know that bugs infest the fruits and vegetables you eat. You don't need emunah, okay? We know that they do. We can see it for ourselves. And if we pay any attention, we're going to have our eyes opened. Does everybody understand the difference between these two things that I'm speaking about? Or do you have questions? If I'm not being clear, please tell me. Because some of this sounds very philosophical, and this is just tonight's class, and it's going to be more practical. But we have to address these big picture things now. Okay, everybody understands? Clear. Okay, good. Now, the other, that we're going to continue on with more of what Rabbeinu says. So, okay. So Rebbe Nachman also says that we also have to understand that at its heart and at its essence, truth is one. There is one ultimate truth. What's the ultimate truth? How do we express this every day? Does anybody want to jump in there? Rachel Rosenberg, I know you know this. Shalamet Michal is typing. Yeah, right, the Shema. Every day we say the Shema. We say, right, Hashem is one. Hashem is a unity and everything is oneness, okay? Okay, hear Israel, listen, okay? Okay, so we express this through the Shema. That is, what is that a statement of? It's a statement of emunah. We wake up in the morning. It's one of the first things we say. The few things we say. It's one of the first things we say is the Shema. Every morning we wake up and we make a statement of emunah. The truth is one. Rebbe Nachman tells us there can be many, many, many lies, but the truth can only be one. And if you want the truth, the ultimate truth that's expressed in the Shema, you can get to parts of that truth through that intellectual pursuit, because there are people who have arrived in a somewhat intellectual manner at the idea that there must be one God and that God must have been the creator. You can kind of do that, but ultimately the deepest truth requires emunah from us. It requires us to go beyond the intellect. If we are willing to say the Shema as it's intended, does anybody know how we intend to say the Shema? Okay, so our intent when we say the Shema is, our intent is I would willingly be martyred to say that Hashem is one. That's what a Jew is. Okay, it doesn't mean that we seek martyrdom. We're not lunatics. But we would, if push came to shove, we would be martyred to say that Hashem is one. Every Jew has this capability. Where does that come from? Does that come from observing a research study? No. Does it come from reading a newspaper, which don't even exist anymore, do they? Does it come from reading a website? No. It comes from emunah. And every Jew has this potential in their core. Every Jew has this potential in their core. Whether we want to go there or not is another matter. Okay. All right. Now, we understand the truth, but I explained to you that really that truth, to reach that truth that God is one, comes down to emunah, comes to faith. In order to achieve truth, to really know truth, oddly enough, it's not the knowledge, it's not the intellectual knowledge, it's faith that's going to get you the truth. Okay, now, Rabbi Nachman has said before, I love this, it's one of my favorite things, and I say it frequently because I think that I find it very liberating. He says, better that you should be the kind of fool who believes in all kinds of, narishkeit, nonsense, and that you may one day come to believing in Hashem, then you should be a person who doesn't have any belief, no faith, no nothing, demands empirical evidence for everything. Okay? It's better to be a little bit foolish because you are teaching yourself the attribute, the quality, the process of faith and belief. Interestingly enough. So for people who didn't grow up with Torah so much in their lives and who believed all kinds of things through their search for Torah, we actually perform tikkunim. We rectify all the stupid things we believed in our past that really were nonsense. We rectify them by taking that faculty of faith and belief, which we used in the past for foolish things, and we rectify it and elevate it to the status of a mitzvah when we use it for faith in God. Isn't that beautiful? It's beautiful. Okay? That's tshuva. That's tshuva. Okay? All right. Now, let's see what else I have. Okay. So what I want to do now, and then I'm going to come back, I want to go to what is included in faith. I want to begin mentioning the 4 types of faith. And throughout this semester, we are going to examine each one of these and then discuss emunah and discuss faith in light of these 4 types. Okay? So there's partial emunah. We discussed this at the beginning of the class. Okay, where it comes and it goes and it's weak and it's this and it's that. And we know that there's holes in it. Okay? And we all have that. Okay? And then there's complete emunah. So in order for your emunah to be complete, if you're the type of person who takes notes, this is when you should be taking notes. Okay? In order to have emunah, in order to have something that qualifies as emunah according to the tzaddikim, you need these 4 things. You need to have emunah in Hashem. You need to have faith in God. You need to have emunah in faith in Torah and mitzvahs. You need to have emunah in faith in the tzaddikim. Okay, and we're going to explain all these, why we need all these aspects of emunah and how we actually apply this. We're going to explain this, but I want someone to tell me what the 4th flavor of emunah is in order for your emunah to be complete. I know somebody here knows. What is the 4th kind of emunah that you need? Right. Simcha Yael, Marianne, that's right. The 4th kind that's also essential to emunah is you have to have faith in yourself. You cannot have what is considered complete emunah. You can't even really call it emunah as a whole unless you have these 4 aspects of emunah. Okay? And what's so powerful is that you have to believe in yourself. Believing in yourself, having faith in yourself is not necessarily what you think it is. Okay, so we'll talk about that as we go on through the semester. Okay, now, In addition to complete emunah, and again, I see somebody's typing, so I'm going to wait in case there's a question. I see Rachel Rosenberg, Kim, I'm Velvet Rosenberg, typing. It didn't pop up. Let me see. Is this also the tzaddik point in the nakuda in ourselves? Okay, so the tzaddik, belief in the tzaddikim, is before that. The nakuda, do you mean the point of the nakuda tova in ourselves? Yes, that's part of it. Definitely. Yes, that's part of it. And we're going to talk about that. We need to get through the other three. Why? Because you cannot have true faith in yourself without the other three. Can you have faith in God without the other things? Sort of. Can you have faith in the tzaddikim without the other things? Sort of. But you cannot have faith in yourself without the others. It's impossible. And we'll explain why, okay, as we go forward. And it's quite eye-opening. And I didn't actually realize that. I mean, I knew you had to have all four of these, but I didn't actually realize that until I learned a couple of lessons that I've learned before in the past in depth. And it just hit me this time. It was so very exciting preparing for this class. Oh, my eyes were opened. Okay, so I will definitely share that with you as we move forward. Okay, now, in addition to complete faith, that includes all these aspects of emunah, we have to have simple faith. It has to be a faith of simplicity. We're going to be talking about it in many complex ways, but ultimately, faith has to be simple. Why? Because Hashem is simple. Hashem is simple. When there's a oneness and a truth, there's simplicity. All the complexities that we experience are at their root, beyond our experience, very simple. That's the essence of Hashem. Okay? Now, I want to read you something. This was, I thought was very telling and interesting. So when Rebbe Nachman was a couple of years before he was nifter, well, a couple of years before he passed away, he heard someone describe Hashem as the old God. And he said that this was very inspiring for him. And he referred to this many, many times over the next couple of years of his life. And he would repeat the words old, over and over again. He would say, Hashem, the old. And he'd go on and on, God. Okay? Why? Because we should believe, as the Rebbe did, that pure simplicity, with pure simplicity, that Hashem is the ancient one. He's older than he's older than the oldest. He's old earth. He's oldest. He's first. Our faith is also ancient. And if we feel that something we're thinking is very new, it's suspect in a way, which is why the Rebbe always reminds us of this. And he says that Hashem, our emunah, are an inheritance, okay? The understanding of this is an inheritance and is not the fruit of ideas, but comes from the beginning of the existence of the world. Our understanding of Hashem's ancientness and his simplicity and our faith, okay, I'm going to repeat it, isn't an idea that somebody thought up. It's not like the Greeks, thought up forms of logic and rhetoric. It's not like that. It's a simple, pure truth. It's very simple, and it requires simple faith. Okay? We don't have to jump through intellectual hoops or even spiritual hoops to get there. All we have to do is turn the key. Hashem is old. He was, is, was before time, will always be. He created everything. He gave us the Torah. Our knowledge is ancient, it's sacred, and it's simple. It's the truth. honestly, how many of us can truly say we feel like that all the time? No, the Rebbe reminds us with that old. Older is better in this way. Okay, Rebbe often talks about being new and renewing yourself. How do you renew yourself? By believing something very old. By believing something very old and simple. That Hashem created the world. He's ancient. Our faith is ancient. And it's actually not that complicated. What's complicated is how we bind ourselves to it. And the thought processes that we go through. The Beit Hara that gets in there and says, but what if, and maybe, and I have a little doubt here, and that's a good question over there, and so on and so forth. You know, there's a certain kind of person that I admire in a way, and I'd like to tell you that kind of person. The person who's not religious, obviously, I admire everybody who tries hard, but there's a certain kind of person, a culture that I admire. I know some people from some particular Sephardic cultures who are not religious. They're not even necessarily traditional, but they believe without any doubt in Hashem. And they say very openly, I know two people like this, they're related. They said they're kind of related to me too. They say very openly, I know the Torah is the truth. I know that Hashem is the truth. And if I'm not following it, that's me. Okay, it's not, nothing's wrong with the Torah. I don't feel like it. Okay? They know what the truth is. When I'm saying I'm admiring this, what I admire is they have this is a simple faith. Maybe they're not expressing it and living it. Okay, be better if they were. We know that because of everything we said before, what the Rebbe says, we have to get there. Okay, but the fact that they're not going to invent different kinds of Judaism, or different kinds of Torah, or different kinds of religions, or different kinds of superstitions, or different kinds of whatever, in order to sever themselves from the Torah, or in order to make themselves feel better about not connecting fully with the Torah. Okay? They admit it's true, and I just don't feel like following it. There is something to be said for that. In a way, their faith, they're not living their faith, but in a way, they're not doing what so much of Western culture does, which drives me crazy, which is to invent ways, okay, to make it easier for us to not express and fully live our emunah. Okay? All right. Now, I do have... Okay, so let me see. So why, okay, I have more quotes from Rabbeinu. Okay, so also from Likutei Moharan, this is from Torah 62. Rebbe explains why the Jews are called Ivrim, okay, or Hebrews, right? Why are we called Ivrim? Okay, so we know, I'm assuming everybody knows the story about Abraham was the first, right, to be called a Jew, or really an Aver, right? Why? Because some say he crossed over the river and so on and so forth. He crossed the other side in his belief on Hashem. But Rabbeinu says we're called Ivrim because our faith allows us to over, which means in Hebrew to pass over, all the difficulties, all the wisdoms, all the pseudo-wisdoms, all the philosophies which we encounter. Okay? So the couple that I was just describing, who I'm very fond of, okay, they don't buy any of the nonsense that's out there. Whether they're living, there's a bug. I think it's a mosquito. Oh, yeah, it is because it's flying. Okay, so they don't allow any of that, okay, to infect their minds. They may not be living, okay? But Rabbi Nachman says that we are Ivrim because, sorry, because we, okay, we skip over all that other stuff. It doesn't affect us. We don't succumb to it. If we're succumbing to it, we need to really start learning more Torah. Okay. All right. It is 9:18. We're supposed to go to 9:15. Are there any questions before next week? Any comments? Any feedback? If not, I'm going to say good night. Okay, and I look forward to seeing you next week. And I hope you all, you're welcome, Michal. I hope you all have a very, very, very good week. And again, the first class is a little philosophical because we have to cover all these aspects, but I want to give you real practical stuff. Okay? Really. Hi, Heidi. Good to see you. I want to give you real practical stuff to make emunah doable and livable. All right, everybody. Have a great week. See you. Bye.